1, 2, 3, go!
Shoot!
Vamps Vampires.
Vamps v Pirates. Okay.
1, 2, 3, go! 1, 2, 3, go!
Who wins?
I eat you.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, go!
No! Okay.
1, 2, 3, go!
Hey everybody, we're just playing a little game of Vampire Pirate Dinosaur.
Yeah, in case you're wondering, vampires beat pirates, pirates beat dinosaurs, and dinosaurs beat vampires.
It's a very scientific evaluation of the strengths of each of those tribes that we've gone through in order to establish that.
But Megan, why are we playing that here today?
Well, Maria, that's because we've had an awesome time drafting Ixalan, and those are 3 of the prominent tribes on Ixalan.
That's right, and every time a new draft format comes out, people scurry to their computers, to their FNMs, to their kitchen tables to try and figure out how to break the draft format.
That's right. So if you want to get out there and beat pirates with vampires or vampires with dinosaurs or dinosaurs with merfolk, which is one of the other synergies that's out there, then Ixalan is the place for you to be.
How do you draft it and how do you win, most importantly?
Well, that's what we're here to tell you. First of all, Ixalan has a lot of tribal synergies, and that means it's important to figure out which tribe is open when you're drafting, because the individual cards by themselves can be a little bit underpowered. So if you're not in open colors, you might end up being short on playable cards.
Remember to read signals that are coming from your right as to which tribe is open, and jump in being not afraid to abandon your first couple of picks if your color just isn't there. So the first tribe we're going to talk about today is vampires, and that is the black-white tribe. Vampires is known for amassing a bunch of little creatures, aka going wide, and is swinging in for life-linking points of damage.
That's right. Vampires have a great advantage when they're trying to win a race, because even though their creatures are small, a lot of them have lifelink, which means that you're buffing your own life total while reducing your opponent's.
So how do you win with vampires? Well, the key is in the commons. I like cards like Bishop's Soldier, which is just a 2 for 2 that has lifelink, but that lifelink can be really important, like Megan said, when you're in a racing situation and just getting out on the board early.
You also have token makers like Queen's Commission and Call to the Feast that are going to let you put out a whole bunch of 1/1 tokens for just 1 card.
You can make use of those 1/1 tokens through cards that pump your creatures up and make them bigger than they should be, like Rallying Roar, which gives all of your creatures +1/+1 and untaps them.
You can also use a card like Anointed Deacon, which gives at the beginning of combat on your turn one of your vampires +2/+0. It can target itself, but some of the better targets can be those tokens, which can then attack past bigger blockers that your opponent might have. Or if you have some of those great flying vampires, like the 1 and a white for a 1/3, or the Skymarch Bloodletter, which is 2 and a black for a 2/2 that also gains and drains a point.
The number 1 card you should look for if you want a super spicy sweet rare in the Vampires deck is Sanctum Seeker. This card drains your opponent every time you attack with a vampire, so things can get out of hand really quickly and you don't even have to do an actual point of damage to knock down your opponent's life total.
Next up, we've got Merfolk, which is the blue-green color pair in Ixalan. Merfolk are using their creatures to put lots of counters on their things with cards like River Herald's Boon or some of the other uncommon Merfolk. Merfolk also has a lot of evasive creatures like River Sneak or Storm Sculptor, which are unblockable, as well as tempo cards like Water Trap Weaver, which are going to allow your creatures to get in while not allowing your opponent to block or get damage in on their own.
Merfolk is another tribe that really likes to be aggressive, so keep your eye out for 1-mana creatures like Jungle Delver, which you can put +1/+1 counters on when you pay 4, or cheap tricks that will help your Merfolk get in for more damage, like Dive Down, which protects any creature that you've bumped up with +1/+1 counters, or 1 with the Wind, which will send your Jade Guardian into the air. Well, here's the tribe that a lot of people have been waiting for. It's the one that starts with a roar, dinosaurs.
Actually, dinosaur ends with a roar.
Oh yeah.
Like dinosaur.
This is the tribe of Dinoroars. And if you want to draft Dinoroars, your main colors are Naya. What does that mean? It means red, white, or green.
And in this case, a lot of the dino decks that we've been seeing so far fall into one of 2 categories. They're either slightly smaller and more aggressively oriented red-white decks that have lots of fun commons like Territorial Hammer Skull, which taps down a creature when you attack with it. Or they have big stompy green-red or green-white dinos, which are just trying to go really big.
Yeah, you can get the biggest of the big with creatures like Regisaur Alpha that comes in with a 3/3 buddy when you play him, or giant creatures like Carnage Tyrant, which is the biggest, baddest, hex-proofiest creature around.
You can also have fun combos like Belligerent Brontodon and Looming Altasaur, which turns that little diminutive 1/7 for 4 into a 7/7 fighter.
Your dinosaurs can get cast early by cards like Kinjali's Caller or Otepec Huntmaster that make your dinos cheaper to cast, so it's easier to force out that Thundering Spine back, which then spits out 4/4 dinosaurs to crush your opponent.
Next we have our other 3-color tribe in Ixalan, which is Pirates, and these are in the Grixis colors, which means that they're black, red, and blue. And Pirates decks are a little bit more flexible sometimes than those dinosaur decks, and truly being 3 colors, because Pirates especially have a lot of treasure running around.
So Pirates, you can either draft, like Megan said, a Grixis color pirate deck, or a very aggressive red-black pirate deck, which gets in with early beats with cards like Headstrong Brute and Brazen Buccaneers, or you can play blue-black Pirates, which is more of a controlling build based around cards like Sailor of Means.
Yes, although those blue-black decks can also get super aggressive if you want them to in the air with things like Siren Storm Tamer and then a Pirate's Cutlass, which you can throw on any of those little flyers and suddenly be dealing huge chunks of damage with.
Pirate's Cutlass is a super important card in this deck because it's resilient, meaning you can attach it to creatures and it doesn't just go away for free, and you can keep attaching it after your creatures die.
Sometimes you can take a Desperate Castaways on turn 2, which is a 2/3, and then you play a Pirate's Cutlass on 3. It attaches itself to the Desperate Castaways, and all of a sudden you're attacking with a 4/4 on turn 3.
Yeah, I like the Pirates deck. I like to go aggressive with my build. If you have a red-black, which is the traditional Rakdos colors, you can come out of the gates faster than just about any deck in the format.
Even if you're not playing one of those 4 tribal synergies in Ixalan, you usually are going to want to be drafting one of the supported color pairs. That means white-black, blue-green, red-white, green-white, green-white. I said green-white already. Green-red, blue-red, blue-black.
Oh my god, this is
Black,
too many
red.
to remember.
That's all of them.
Okay.
We got there. That means there's not a lot of unsupported color pairs left out, but stuff like green-black, which is one of those unsupported color pairs, isn't going to give you as many good solid cards that work well together, and you're not going to have any of those nice gold card uncommons like Shapers of Nature or Call to the Feast, which you're going to get if you are in those supported color pairs.
You might say to yourself, wait a second, Vraska is green-black, what the heck? Well, yeah, she is, and you can try building a green-black deck, but the chances are it's going to be a little bit underpowered compared to what your opponents are doing. But the good news is, as we mentioned before, treasure is a thing in this set, and you can splash Vraska pretty easily. Let's talk about the mechanics in Ixalan.
That's right. First up is Explore. This is one of the limited mechanics in this set, which I really like.
Explore is fantastic. It does everything you want. It gets lands into your hand or out of your draw step and puts counters on your creatures, especially when you want it flying in the air.
The one drawback to look for with Explore is that sometimes the creatures that it's on aren't going to be great if they don't get that counter. So when you're playing an Explore creature, you do have to ask yourself, am I okay if this creature doesn't have a counter on it? Some stuff like Merfolk Branchwalker, which is a 2/1 for 1 and a green with Explore, the answer is totally.
Yeah,
I am a-okay with a 2/1 for 2 mana that also draws me that land that's on top of my deck. But sometimes if you're looking at like a Queen's Agent, which is a card that you'll play in Black-White Vampires some of the time, the answer is if it's a 3/3 with lifelink for 6, that's not as great.
Yeah, Explore is a fabulous mechanic, and I think Wizards Research and Development really hit it out of the park with this one. But be aware of cards like Shadowed Caravel, which is a rare in this set, which is a boat that gets +1/+1 every time you explore, just because there just simply isn't enough reliable ways to give it +1/+1, and then it just dies.
Next up we have Enrage, which is the dinosaurs mechanic, and this just says that you get something when that creature is dealt damage. There's also a lot of fun ways that you can potentially deal damage to your own creatures in dinosaurs using stuff like Pounce, which fights, or Savage Stomp, or even Rile or Dual Shot.
Yeah, so Enrage is a mechanic that you can use to your benefit even when your opponents are trying to kill you. So if you have a creature like Suncrown Hunters in play, well, it does its job just being a big fatty that you cast for 6 mana, but your opponents are going to be pretty wary of it because anytime it's dealt damage, it does 3 to them.
Then we have Raid, which is a returning mechanic that we saw last in the Khans of Tarkir block. And this is something where you get a bonus if you attacked with a creature this turn. Sometimes it waits until your end step. Sometimes it's a creature that when it comes into play, if you attacked, then you're going to get a raid trigger. But either way, obviously this belongs in more aggressively slanted decks where you're going to be reliably attacking almost every turn to turn these creatures into slightly better creatures when you're casting them.
Ruin Raider is my favorite creature with raid, and it's in the name. If you attacked with a creature this turn, you get to draw a card and lose life equal to its converted mana cost. We call this a Bob effect, or a Dark Confidant.
One of mine is Stormfleet Aerialist, which is a 1/2 for 1 and a blue. With Raid, it gets a +1/+1 counter if you attack with a creature. And a 2/3 flyer for 2, that's just difficult to beat.
Oh yeah.
In terms of value, great card.
Keep in mind that if you're playing Raid, like Megan said, you do want to be aggressive because you want to be rewarded for the cards that have Raid. They usually are a little on the underpowered side unless you can trigger their Raid ability.
Another great example is the Stormfleet Pyromancer, which is a 3/2 for 5 mana. But if you have Raid, it deals 2 damage to target creature or opponent when it comes in. A 3/2 for 5 isn't something I want to be casting, but if it pings for 2 as well, then that is something I'd like.
One of the mechanics that's full of flavor here on this land of pirates is Treasure.
Treasure is just artifact tokens that you can sack to make mana of any color. There's tons of different ways to make them. There's some spells that make treasure, like Depths of Desire, which gives you some tempo advantage as well. There's stuff like Contract Killing, which is one of my very favorite cards in the set, of course.
There's creatures that make treasure when they die, like Direfleet Hoarder. You weren't in the will, but you do get her goods. So Treasure is really fun because, like I said, you can splash cards off of it, like Vraska, of course, or, you know, I've even seen people splash colors that require 3 red mana pips off of 0 red mountains. It happened to me. Burning Sun's Avatar got me. It got me. There were no mountains in play.
Rough.
Only treasure. So Megan, tell me a little bit about the speed of Ixalan, because when we're examining a draft format, it's important to know how fast it is.
So far, the general consensus is that Ixalan is slightly on the faster side. You do have all of these smaller creatures, which are a little more underpowered, so everyone's trying to get in and get their opponent killed as quickly as possible. That doesn't mean that you can't draft a slower deck, but it does mean that you're gonna have a plan for if someone's coming at you with a 1-drop and a 2-drop and a 3-drop all on curve. If you don't have a solid plan in place, then you're gonna die to that pretty quickly.
After you've drafted Ixalan a few times and maybe you've drafted each one of the tribes and tested them out, a lot of people will take that opportunity to kind of dig deeper into the format and find out what else they can potentially do with their draft. And that can lead to some pretty interesting decks, and I think we're right there in Ixalan right now. People are trying to figure out new and interesting ways to make the format work for them that doesn't involve just smashing in on turns 2 and 3 with red-black pirates.
That's right. So one of the fun things, as we mentioned earlier, that people are doing is drafting decks that have a whole bunch of different colored mana requirements that aren't in their dominant color pair, and they're not even using lands to cast those off-color spells. They're just using treasure.
Yeah, I love it.
They can so reliably generate it, they say, do you know what? I'm gonna go out and get this done.
Feel free to experiment, because draft is nothing if not a place for you to jump in the pool of fun and get your feet wet.
That's right. There's also lots of cards that people have found surprising. One that we mentioned is Pirate's Cutlass.
Yeah.
Usually, you know, different equipment, that's not always been the sweet spot in draft formats. But Pirate's Cutlass is a great example of one of those pieces of equipment that in Ixalan is really getting a good job done.
Another card that we've liked a lot, of course, we mentioned it earlier, is Dive Down, +0/+3 and Hexproof for a single blue mana. This card has proven to be super powerful in that it can help your creatures win combat by giving them an extra 3 toughness and saves them from any removal spell, especially if you're doing stuff that's really kind of tricky with auras like Swashbuckling, Mark of the Vampire, or One with the Wind.
Well, everybody, those are our tips for you if you're heading out to draft Ixalan.
If you have some cool draft strategies, please let us know in the comments and tell everybody how to do it so it's no longer only yours.
Until next time, good luck.
High five. I didn't even look.